Tuesday night is open mic night at Walter Sports Bar. Got talent? Bring it to the stage. Come show off your skills or just sit back and enjoy the show while indulging in delicious food and ice-cold drinks. Open mic begins at 7 p.m., located just across the street from the ballpark.
Infield back, Nats will give up a run to get it out, and the pitch swung on and hit hard past the sprawling third baseman House and down the left field line for extra bases. Yastrzemski scores, Acuna scores, and Drake Baldwin into second base with his fourth double of the year. And the Braves have cashed in on the error and the hit batter and scored them both. And they are back in front. It's Atlanta 4 and Washington 3 actually in front for the first time tonight. Swinging a line shot up the middle and into center field past a diving Abrams for a hit. Rounding third is Riley coming home to score. Heading for third is Albies in there without a play as the throw goes into second. Single drives in his 10th run of the year. And for the Braves, the 4th run of the inning. Runners on first and third, still only one out. And it's now Atlanta 6 and Washington 3.
Here's the pitch. Tena hits one in the air well to right center field, but Michael Harris tracks it back. Harris makes the catch, and that'll do it. Braves have won their 6th in a row. The Nationals had a 3-2 lead, but gave up 5 in the 6th with a sloppy defensive inning. And Atlanta rolls on to a 9-4 win in Game 1 of a 4-game series.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark is at Nationals Park, where things got a bit testy on Monday evening, and where we also had yet another blown lead by the Nats bullpen. A 9-4 loss to the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park in Game 1 of a 4-game series. This was a game in which the Nats blew a 3-2 6-inning lead by allowing 5 runs in the top of the 6th. This also was a game in which the Nats infield defense was very sloppy. 2 fielding errors, multiple other plays that could have been made but were not, and a passed ball. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 10-13, 2-8 at home versus 8-5 on the road. The Braves now are a National League East best 16-7 with an MLB best run differential of plus 62. The Nats run differential, in case you're curious, is minus 18. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by the Golf Yards in Ballston, the DMV's new home for elite indoor golf training. The Nats season is just getting going, and so is the DMV's golf season. Make sure that your swing is ready. Visit thegolfyards.com to secure your spot. Coming up later in the show, an update on Nats starting pitcher Josiah Gray. The update seems rather ominous, but the Nats on Monday evening had 4 runs on 3 hits. The Braves on Monday evening had 9 runs on 8 hits. Each team was very efficient, but whereas Braves relievers combined for 2 1/3 perfect innings, Nats relievers officially combined to allow 5 runs in 4 innings. Starting pitcher Jake Irvin, another Jekyll and Hyde outing. He, for a portion of the outing, looked great. He, for another portion of the outing, did not look so great. And the result, Mark, was a Nats loss as they remain in the midst of this brutal stretch of 17 consecutive days with no scheduled off days.
There's actually a lot to talk about in this one, Al. You've got the, I don't want to call it a beanball war because I don't think it was quite that, but there were some interesting developments in the game in that regard and some interesting comments after the fact. You have, I think, really Blake Butera's first controversial in-game decision to pull Jake Irvin at only 68 pitches in the 6th inning and then seeing how everything spiraled out of control after that. And I think ultimately what really this game is about is you're playing a Braves team, and you just outlined it. They've been basically the best in baseball, scored the most runs and given up the fewest runs. Okay, it's hard to be any better than that 3+ weeks into the season. You're facing a team like that. You've got to play clean baseball, and the Nats came nowhere close to playing clean baseball in this one. And maybe they don't win the game anyways if they make the plays in the field. Maybe they just weren't going to hit enough, or maybe the bullpen wasn't going to be good enough to protect that lead. But boy, the defense did not help the cause at all. It's a recurring problem. It's not just this year. It goes back to the past. It's very often involving the infield in particular. And you can work on it. They say they can work on it. They can try to say we're going to hold guys accountable and all that. It comes down to the end. Can you make the plays when the games are on the line? And so to see that continue to be an issue, I'm not going to say I'm surprised by it, but it's disappointing to see that still, be such a major issue for them, where It basically denied them a chance to win this game against a very good team. Maybe they wouldn't have won it anyways, but once you throw all the defensive mistakes into it, that pretty much threw any chance of winning this game out the window.
And it was up the middle in the infield that you had the problems, right? The pass ball on the catcher, Drew Millis, multiple rough defensive moments for the shortstop, C.J. Abrams. Even the second baseman, Nasim Nunez, known for his defense, he committed a fielding error. But regarding things getting testy, so C.J. Abrams, he has the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, 0 for 2 with a walk and a hit by pitch, had a stolen base, committed that error. But Abrams in a Nats 1-run 6th, drew a 1-out first pitch, hit by pitch, from the Braves starting pitcher Bryce Elder. The Nats starting pitcher Jake Irvin earlier in the game had issued 2 hit-by pitches to the Braves' Ronald Acuna Jr., knocking him out of the game.
Irvin sets, kicks, delivers, checks. Oh, it hit him again. He started to swing and then gets hit on the hand, and Acuna's really upset.
And each team was issued a warning. Now, nothing came of Abrams being hit by that pitch, so there was no incident. And I have to say, I commend C.J. Abrams because he took what pretty clearly was an intentional hit by pitch in stride.
And the pitch.
That seemed to be on purpose.
The backstop inside ball 1.
They're going to issue some warnings now. They might just eject him. Clearly had a message.
The umpires are going to huddle up here.
It did hit Abrams.
It did graze him, okay.
I mean, that seemed to have some purpose behind it.
Abrams calmly going to first base.
Did not make a big scene, and he ended up scoring. He did the thing that you always want to do, right? How do you avenge being hit by a pitch on purpose? You score. And that's what Abrams did. He stole second base, scored on a 2-out throwing error by third baseman Austin Riley to cut the Nats deficit to 7-4. I know this was a big post-game topic. I actually think there's a lot to this, but what struck you in terms of what was said after the game?
Before I get to what was said after the game, I just want to agree with you. I think C.J. Abrams was the key to the whole thing, the way that he took it and the way that he responded to it on the field, as you said, stealing second, ultimately scoring the run. He could have turned this into a way bigger deal than it ever needed to be, and I thought his handling of it is exactly what you would like to see in that moment. So I commend C.J. Abrams for that. As far as what people said and what all happened here, the Braves are saying what you expect them to say. Oh, it slipped, wasn't on purpose. Blake Butera came right out and said it was pretty obvious they hit C.J. Abrams on purpose.
I thought it was pretty clear that C.J. got hit right there on purpose, first pitch.
And it's hard to think anything else when that inning, Brady House leads off, nothing happens to him, and then the very first pitch to C.J., obviously a better player, is right in the meaty spot on his backside, exactly where you would try to throw that pitch if that's what you're trying to do. Clearly, they're upset that Ronald Acuna got hit twice. He came out of the game, although thankfully x-rays on his hand were negative, so it looks like he's going to be fine. You understand their frustration with that, but you cannot tell me that anybody watching this game thought that Jake Irvin hit Acuna on purpose, either the first time or certainly the second time.
Understand, Acuna, he got hit twice. It was by no means on purpose or anything like that. Jake just let a couple get away from him.
I've never liked this aspect of baseball. I know it's an old school way of going about it, but yes, you're frustrated. Your best player has been hit a lot. Okay. That doesn't just give you the right to throw at somebody else. And thankfully, because of, I think, the way C.J. Abrams handled it, and I think the way Blake Butera handled it as well, they didn't let it escalate into anything else. They basically said, okay, fine. You got your free shot at C.J. He's fine. He handled it well. Let's move on.
Just take it. Hit me in the butt. I'll be all right.
I don't think this thing lingers at all beyond this one day. But I just never liked that part of baseball where it's just understood that because your best player has been hit a few times, even if there was no intent behind any of it, that just gives you the right to throw at the other team's best player. And, the umpires gave the warnings to it. They explained it to Butera. He wanted some clarification. How does this all work? I remember Frank Robinson saying this many, many years ago. The umpires are not required to issue a warning. If they believe that a pitcher intentionally threw at a hitter, they are entitled to eject him from the game right then and there. You don't have to issue the warnings first. And this is where it always gets murky because everybody in the building knew they threw at Abrams on purpose. Were they going to eject Bryce Elder from the game? No, they're not going to do that. They never do that kind of thing. But they have the right to do it. And I think if you really want to get this kind of stuff out of the game, you take that next step and you say, sorry, you're ejected. In our opinion, you clearly intentionally threw at a player. You're out of here. Forget about the whole warning system. That's my opinion on it. But, clearly that's not the way that baseball handles these situations.
No, because the dirty little secret is baseball doesn't want to get this out of the game. This actually, on a sporadic basis, is good for the game. You don't want too much of it, but this kind of thing becomes a low-hanging fruit kind of topic that, shows like First Take just love and we'll talk about. And this is the kind of thing that will get played up online. MLB.com has essentially promoted brawls. Like a brawl will happen, and then the next day, that's a headline story on baseball's official website, the MLB official website, MLB.com. So I have never believed, if you go by the actions of MLB, that MLB actually wants to completely eradicate this stuff. I will say this. If you're going to hit someone on purpose, as Bryce Elder did, the way he did it is how you do it. He threw at Abrams' hip/backside, didn't throw at his head, clearly was not trying to hurt Abrams. This was Bryce Elder standing up for his teammate, Ronald Acuna. I get where Elder was coming from. I don't like seeing Abrams getting hit by a pitch, but, if you put your mind in the framing of an Atlanta Braves person, I think you can understand where Elder was coming from. I thought what he did in the right way. If you're going to do it, that's how you do it. And I also want to say this. So the Nats in this regular season have issued 14 hit by pitches over 23 games. The Nats last regular season issued an MLB worst 89 hit by pitches. The Nats are lucky that they have not been in some massive brawl at some point over these last two seasons with all of these hit by pitches. Intentional, unintentional. It really actually doesn't matter all that much. I mean, teams just don't like being hit by pitches, and teams are going to stand up for players who get hit by pitches. And the Nats have been like out of control since the start of last season with these hit by pitches. And at some point, a team is going to take offense to that. And at some point, something's going to happen here. And I'm actually surprised that we haven't had some major incident take place over this time with all of these hit by pitches that have been issued by Nats pitchers.
Perhaps it's a subtle acknowledgement from the rest of the league that they understand that the Nationals pitching staff just has not been very good and maybe isn't good enough to command as well as they probably should. I'm trying to think back to them all. I don't really remember many, if any, incidents where they were throwing up in the end, near the head. I think that's where teams get upset. If you've got bad command and you're hitting a guy and it's, below the neck, I think for the most part, teams understand that and don't make too big a deal out of it. Of course, Ronald Acuna, who's been hit many times and I think has gone on the IL before because he was hit by a pitch, completely understand why the Braves would be upset. I would just counter with, and I've felt this, throughout my entire life watching baseball. Okay, you did it the right way. You hit C.J. Abrams in the butt.
Just take it. Hit me in the butt. I'll be all right.
What did that accomplish? Is it now okay, well, the Nats are never going to hit another one of their players again? Or they're just going to purposely not try to throw anything on the inside part of the plate? I hope that's not true because they need to be aggressive. They need to pitch the best of their abilities. And sometimes it does involve somebody getting hit, not on purpose at all. So I agree. Everything was handled the way it's quote unquote supposed to be handled and the way it has been handled for many years. And it didn't lead to any really ugliness out there. But I would just, counter argue with that was what would you hope to accomplish with any of that? What would the end result be that would make anything better by throwing at the other team's best player?
Yeah, honestly, it's machismo, and it's, I think, the idea of just you're standing up for yourself. But yeah, I mean, was the world fundamentally changed by C.J. Abrams being hit by that pitch? No, not really. It was not. Will be interesting to see if this carries over. This is a 4-game series. We still have 3 games to go. These are 2 division rivals to whatever extent that matters anymore. But it did seem like, after Abrams got hit by the pitch, things were fine. So if there is no carryover the rest of the series, I don't think that'll be too surprising. This might actually be a one and done type thing in terms of just this game and then nothing more regarding the hit by pitches.
Yeah, I agree. What I would hate to see happen would be for a Braves hitter to get hit at some other point in this series and for them to take more offense at it when, let's be clear, there's no reason for the Nats to throw at them. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully Acuna is fine, doesn't miss any more time. And, that's, the end of that. But I don't know. If these two teams are going head to head in a real rivalry right now, I think it adds a lot of spice to it and it maybe changes the dynamic. But let's be clear, one of these teams is one of the best in baseball and has been for a long time. One of them is very much trying to get back into the mix and probably isn't ready to get involved and, take on the bullies of the NL East quite at this point yet.
The Nats season is officially underway, and that means the outdoor golf season here in the DMV is just kicking off too. But let me ask you this. Is your swing actually ready for the course, or are you still knocking off the winter rust? If you are tired of losing strokes earlier in the year, you need to check out the Golf Yards. They're opening the most advanced indoor golf performance club in the DMV right here in Ballston, located directly off I-66. This isn't just another simulator bar. It's a true 24/7 training facility featuring the best tech in the game. Tour-grade TrackMan simulators, well-putt putting technology, techno gym and Oxford strength training used by Olympians and PGA Tour pros, and a one-of-a-kind short game area with a real sand trap. It's the perfect place to fix your slice, work on your short game, or just escape the unpredictable spring weather. Doors are opening this May, but founding memberships are going fast. They are building an incredible community of golf enthusiasts in the DMV and want you to be part of it. Go to thegolfyards.com right now to lock in your founding membership and get your swing dialed in. That's thegolfyards.com.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Baseball fans know every pitch can change a game. Playoff hockey is just as intense. Every shift, every second matters. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with stars like Paul Bissonnette bringing laughs and Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger, just like a big Nationals win. Playoff hockey is unpredictable, physical, and full of overtime drama. If you love sports, you'll love the energy. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, TrueTV, and HBO Max.
Daylen Lile leads off against Bryce Elder, swings and hits one in the air to deep right. Back goes Acuna, looking up. It's going, gone, goodbye. A leadoff home run for Daylen Lile, caught by Cionel Perez in the Nationals bullpen. Bang, zoom goes Daylen Lile. A leadoff homer, is second of the year, and it's the Nationals 3 and the Braves 2.
Well, the Nats offense in this game, for the most part, not good. 4 runs, not too bad, but just 3 hits, which were a home run, and 2 singles, just 2 walks, just 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Daylen Lile did homer. That was good. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 5 batter, 1 for 3 with a solo homer and a walk. Lile in the Nats 1-run fourth, a leadoff first pitch homer to right field for a 3-2 Nats lead. And the ball was caught by Nats reliever Cionel Perez in the Nats bullpen and in his hat. And if you know your Cionel Perez history, you know that he does this. He did this over his 4 seasons with the Baltimore Orioles, catching homers in his hat. And now he's doing that with the Nats. And that is a skill, man. I don't know that that translates to anything on the mound, but that's not easy to do. And he did that here in this game.
I was not aware of the history until I started hearing about it after the fact when he made the catch. And I saw some videos of him doing it in the past. Try to catch a baseball, like a well-hit baseball, fly ball in your hat. It's really hard to do. The hat always will crumble and it will never stay in. There's actually, a specific rule in baseball that you cannot use your hat or any other part of your equipment besides your glove or your body to catch a live ball. And there's probably a good reason for it because it's not easy to do. You see it in the movies all the time, stick your hat out, catch the ball. It's really hard to pull that off. So props to Cionel Perez for having that unique skill. I wish it, meant that made him a better reliever in some way. I don't know how that would carry over onto the field at all, but good for him for having some fun with it. Good for Lyle for hitting the home run. Offensively, I thought that first inning was really impressive. Big 2-out rally. You had patience. You had Abrams and Lyle each drawing 2-out walks to extend the inning, and then Jacob Young driving them both in with a 2-out, 2-run single. They had Bryce Elder on the ropes, 32 pitches, only 15 strikes in the first inning. And you thought, okay, one of the better pitchers in the league so far this season, Elder, and the Nats lineup is working him, and they may knock him out early. And then what happened? They went silent. I know you get the Lile home run, but Elder was so efficient after that he ends up going all the way into the 7th inning and never even got to 100 pitches. That to me was really disappointing. You had a great offensive approach in the first inning, and I understand Elder's really good, and maybe some of the credit goes to him. But boy, they made some quick outs after that, and they got him up off the ropes when they had a chance to take him out early.
Yeah, Jacob Young in that 2-run first, a good-looking 2-out opposite field, 2-run single to right field to put the Nats up 2-0. Young as the Nats starting center fielder and number 6 batter, 1 for 4 with a 2-run single. But how about the fact that the hat stays intact in catching these homers? Like, these homers are being hit with exit velocities normally of like 100+ miles per hour. How does the hat stay intact? That's what I want to understand, that the ball goes screaming into the hat and the hat doesn't like rip apart. I don't understand how that happens.
You're right. That's what I'm saying. That it's very hard to do that. If you go out there and try to do that yourself, your hat is going to either break or at least it's going to fall out of your hand and the ball is going to end up on the ground. So tremendous wrist strength, I suppose. And maybe he's got some sticky stuff or something else in his hat to help reinforce it. I don't know. What's the answer to that one? May have to have an investigation.
Cionel Perez, the master of catching homers in the hat in the bullpen. The Nats starting pitcher for this 9-4 loss to the Braves at Nationals Park on Monday evening was Jake Irvin. He officially allowed 4 runs, 3 earned in 5 innings. Gave up just 3 hits. They were a home run and 2 singles. He issued the 2 hit-by pitches of Ronald Acuna Jr. Did have 4 strikeouts versus no walks. It was good to see that. 68 pitches, 43 strikes, 25 balls. He began his outing with 3 perfect innings, but he in the top of the 4th allowed 2 runs, gave up a 1-out 2-run homer by Matt Olson to center field to tie the game at 2. The homer winner projected 419 feet per Statcast. And Irvin, and what ended up being a 5-run 6 for the Braves, got charged with 2 runs, though only 1 was earned due to a fielding error by second baseman Nasim Nunez. So a few things from this Jake Irvin start. Number 1, another one of these Jekyll and Hyde type outings where for a portion of the outing he looks really good, for another portion of the outing he looks rather bad. But the other item is Blake Butera pulling Irvin at just 68 pitches. Now, Irvin may well have been fading, and, he isn't exactly someone who you say has earned the trust to stay in games. See what he did this past season. But he gets pulled at 68 pitches, and then the bullpen unravels, and we'll get to the specifics of that. A good chunk of the Blake Butera postgame press conference was spent talking about Irvin's outing and why Irvin got pulled, and sort of the philosophy here of handling Irvin in this manner, given this stretch of 17 consecutive days with no scheduled off days.
Jake had been throwing the ball really well, like I mentioned, just with the time run on second there in the 6th. Those guys coming up again for a 3rd time, just thought PJ was the right move.
What'd you think of Butera pulling Irvin at 68 pitches?
So I completely understand the logic behind it, the rationale behind it, and this was essentially, we can get into it, this is essentially a preordained decision. And Butera essentially admitted that when I asked him one of the follow-up questions. So is that a case where he probably comes out no matter how the first 2 batters of the inning go?
Yeah, with the time run there, yeah. If we had a little bit more cushion, maybe differently. Not Jake's fault by any means. If we had, more runs and a bigger gap, I think it's a little bit different.
It was, we're not going to let him face the 2 top lefties in the Braves lineup, Drake Baldwin and Matt Olson. We're not going to let him face them a 3rd time through. Now, the 2nd time through, Baldwin singles, Olson homers. So you understand the logic of that 100%. Here's why I don't like it in this particular case, for several reasons. One, we know what the Nationals bullpen is. The odds of that group having a better chance of getting through that part of the lineup and through the rest of the game unscathed versus Jake Irvin, I don't think is all that high. Now, that doesn't mean that Irvin himself would have been successful. It's entirely possible, maybe even probable, that he also gets into trouble and doesn't make it out of the inning or gives up a bunch of runs before he gets out of it. So knowing what your bullpen is, knowing, as Butera himself has mentioned several times, they're in a stretch of 17 consecutive game days on the calendar. They have used their relievers so much, long relievers. They've had this shuttle back and forth with Rochester, not for performance reasons, but because they've needed a fresh arm basically every day for several days now. Knowing all that, if ever there's a time to push your starter a little bit further, I felt like this was it. Now, if this is a pennant race game where there's a lot at stake and you're going all in to try to win this game, the logic, again, it makes perfect sense. I get it. But they're in a developmental stage here, and they're in a really tough part of the schedule. Jake Irvin is a member of their starting rotation, and for the first time in, one of the only times this season, their starting pitcher was in a position to be able to go deeper in the game and take some of the load off the bullpen. I just felt like the moment dictated letting your starter stay in there, even if it doesn't work out. I think the bigger picture of what it would mean for the day after and the day after that was worth it, as opposed to just going all in to play the matchups and to go with a predetermined plan that you had going into this one. Again, I understand it. The logic is sound. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't like it in this particular case. I don't like that kind of thing in general, and I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more of this. I think this is the way they're going to manage, the way they're going to treat pitching staffs. It's very much preordained and about the matchups and less about what you're feeling in that moment.
Well, you wonder how much different things would have been if Nasim Nunez had not started that top of the sixth with that fielding error. If an out had been gotten there, would Irvin have lasted longer or not? Irvin did then issue that second hit by pitch of Acuna, and that was it. And so, if Irvin doesn't do that, does he stay in the game? It's a tricky deal here because, you'd like to say, well, Irvin was making his case against the preordained nature of how he ended up being handled. He did throw a scoreless top of the fifth off the struggles in the top of the fourth, so that was good. But then he hits Acuna with the pitch, and, you do say to yourself, like, all right, now is now when he really starts to come apart. And, the goal with the manager always is to get the starter out before he unravels, not after. So we get that. But I think what you're saying makes total sense. We did see the Nats bullpen, and we talked about this on the last installment of the podcast. The bullpen actually did some good things in the prior series. And I wonder if that was at all on Butera's mind of, okay, our bullpen overall isn't good, but, maybe here and there we can find pockets of success, and maybe we're in the midst of potentially a pocket of success here. Clearly, that was not the case. It's just so tough, man, because you have this bullpen that overall isn't good, and you have a guy in Jake Irvin who, statistically speaking, may well have been the worst pitcher in the sport last season. So, this isn't Matt Williams pulling Jordan Zimmerman in the 2014 NLDS. Like, this is Blake Butera pulling Jake Irvin in the middle of April against the mighty Atlanta Braves. It's kind of 6 in one, half dozen in the other. You're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. But I get what you're saying, and it makes sense. If for no other reason, have it be Irvin who struggles, because at least you're hoping to keep the bullpen somewhat intact as the Nats plow through this ridiculous stretch of 17 games in 17 days.
Right. And yeah, let's be clear. Option A, option B, neither one was a great option. You wish you had an option C to really take care of business there. So, it's very likely that the inning falls apart on them no matter who is on the mound. But to your point about Irvin, it's not like he was cruising at that point. Early on, yes. Later on, not as much. And yes, he hits Acuna, and yes, the inning's starting to come undone. But I did ask Blake Butera specifically, if Irvin gets the first two outs, are you pulling him anyways because of the two lefties coming up? And his answer was essentially yes. He's probably coming out of the game unless we've got a big lead and maybe there's a little more margin for error. And then you say, I'm going to push my starter.
If we had, more runs and a bigger gap, I think it's a little bit different.
But in a close game, in his mind, that was the plan all along.
And then Jake hits Acuna, and then just with the tying run on second there, and Baldwin and Olsen staring us in the face, third time through the order.
Irvin's not going to face those two lefties the third time. He liked the matchup with Poulin. He liked having a fresh Brad Lord after that. And look, if Poulin and Lord do the job, then we're saying brilliant managing job by Blake Butera, and look how they pulled that off. So you have to separate the process from the results, of course. But I do think, and he seemed to be making it pretty clear, that Irvin would have come out no matter what had happened up to that point, that was going to be the plan going in. I will just say that's a very Tampa Bay Rays approach to managing a pitching staff. Most famously, Kevin Cash pulling Blake Snell in a World Series game that he was dominating, and it all fell apart after that. I think we're going to see more of this. It's very much Here's our plan going in, and we're going to stick to it, barring something really crazy happening that makes us change our mind in game.
Well, you know where I stand on the process. I love it. So it's hard for me to ever be too critical of it, but I do get where you're coming from with what you said. Irvin now in the regular season here, 5 games, all starts, ERA of exactly 6, whip of 1.29. And yeah, the Nats bullpen, another really rough game. 3 relievers combined to allow 5 runs in 4 innings, and that's the official line for the bullpen. P.J. Poulin officially allowed 2 runs in a third of an inning. He had what ended up being a 5-run 6 for the Braves, faced 3 batters, got 1 out, came into the game, top of the 6, runners on first and second, no outs. Nats up 3-2. He, on the very first pitch, issued what initially was ruled a wild pitch. It got changed to a pass ball. That was a pitch that the catcher, Drew Millis, really should have caught. The runners advanced to second and third. Poulin on his second pitch gave up an opposite field 2-run double by Drake Baldwin to left field for a 4-3 Braves lead, and Poulin 2 batters later issued a 1-out walk of Austin Riley despite having had him down at 1.12. Brad Lord allowed 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. He came into the game top of the 6, runners at the corners, 1 out. Nats down 4-3. Lord to the first batter he faced gave up a 1-out opposite field RBI single by Ozzie Albies to left field for a 5-3 Braves lead. Lord to the second batter he faced gave up a 1-out RBI single by Michael Harris the second up the middle for a 6-3 Braves lead. Lord to the third batter he faced induced a grounder by the former Nats first baseman Dom Smith for a 1-6 fielder's choice out at second, but Lord made an errant throw to shortstop C.J. Abrams at second, and the Nats did not turn a 1-6-3 double play, allowing another run to score for a 7-3 Braves lead, and then came Abrams committing a fielding error on a 2-out grounder by Jorge Mateo. Lord, to his credit, did then toss a perfect top of the 7th and a perfect top of the 8th. And the latest addition to the Nats bullpen in terms of a transaction, Julian Fernandez. He in the top of the 9th allowed 2 runs on 2 singles, 2 walks, a wild pitch, and a sac fly. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced having recalled Fernandez from AAA Rochester. But did you happen to notice what happened on what ended up being an RBI bunt single by Eli White in that 9th? 1-out, first pitch bunt RBI single by Eli White. He got tagged out by Luis Garcia Jr. The replay clearly shows Garcia tagging White out.
30-year-old right-hander Fernandez the set. Here's the pitch, and White bunts the ball to the first baseman Garcia. This will score a run. Diving for the tag, Garcia, and he missed him. White is safe at first. Garcia's pointed the dugout saying to challenge it. But either way, it's a bunt and an RBI and an 8-4 Atlanta lead.
The call on the field was that White was safe, and the Nats, for some reason, did not challenge the play. I don't know if they didn't see that angle or if they were too slow to challenge, but that was a challenge that 100% would have worked, and the Nats, for whatever reason, did not issue the challenge.
Yeah, Garcia's immediate reaction was pointing the dugout saying, hey, challenge that, like he knew he had tagged him. I think there was probably some miscommunication between the video room and Blake Butera and the various steps that get to him. I didn't see it myself, but somebody said they initially saw Butera signal no challenge and then try to change his mind as if somebody on the phone miscommunicated that to him and it was too late by the time he found out. Yes, the game's already kind of lost at that point, but you never know. And if you have clear evidence and your first baseman was so adamant that he had tagged him, yeah, you would like to see that play challenged. Even if they end up not getting the call overturned at that point in the game, there's not really a lot of harm in attempting to do that. The irony is pregame Butera was asked about how much they've been bunting or trying to bunt, and specifically the safety squeeze, which they've done a few times. And he said he's such a huge proponent of that play. And his rationale, as he said, is if executed properly, that play is not able to be defended. And he said, how do you execute that properly? You bunt the ball to the first baseman. If you bunt it to the pitcher, you're in trouble. If you bunt it to the first baseman, he said, it cannot be defended. Then what happened a few hours later? The Braves executed it perfectly, bunted it to the first baseman, who did tag him, but even then the run would have scored regardless. So props to the Braves for properly executing that play. Blake Butera knows his baseball. You get a safety squeeze down the right way, there's really nothing the defense can do.
It really is funny. The Nats are embracing analytics like never before, but this team is pro-bunting. Like, we're seeing that here. This team is not anti-bunting in any way.
Baseball fans know every pitch can change a game. Playoff hockey is just as intense. Every shift, every second matters. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with stars like Paul Bissonnette bringing laughs and Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger, just like a big Nationals win. Playoff hockey is unpredictable, physical, and full of overtime drama. If you love sports, you'll love the energy. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, True TV, and HBO Max.
Jacob Young, a 2-run single to right and bounce to short. And the pitch chopped to third. Fair ball. Riley has it. Strong arm. High throw over everything. Off the railing in the stands. Abrams will score, and Young, the left turn, heads for second without a play. It's now the Braves 7 and the Nationals 4.
Game 2 of this series, Nats against the Braves at Nationals Park, Tuesday evening, 6:45. Foster Griffin will be the Nats starting pitcher. All right, shortly before the start of this game on Monday evening, we got an update on starting pitcher Josiah Gray, and the update came off as rather ominous. Maybe there's more here than we realize, but the Nats announced that Gray, quote, will undergo additional testing, end quote, and is, quote, not throwing at this time, end quote. Josiah Gray is on the 60-day injured list. He has been on that since March 23rd, retroactive to March 22nd. This due to a right flexor strain, and that is off him in July 2024, having undergone both Tommy John surgery and an internal brace procedure on his right UCL. He has had 2 consecutive lost seasons, may well be in the midst of a 3rd consecutive lost season. What did you think about this announcement? Like I said, on the surface, doesn't seem like good news.
Let me take you behind the curtain a little bit here of how that information is disseminated. This is a relatively new thing that the Nationals have started doing. Instead of just having reporters randomly ask on any given day of the manager, hey, anything new with Josiah Gray or anybody else who's on the IL, they're putting out a weekly injury report, and there's a list of whoever is on the IL or dealing with something, and it's got just very basic information about everyone. And so the one we got on Monday included updates on, Trevor Williams and DJ Hers and others. There really wasn't anything new for any of them. Josiah Gray, that stood out as, okay, that's a new development and so worth sharing. They put that out after we'd already talked to Blake Butera, so there wasn't really an opportunity to then ask formally, hey, what's going on with him? Whether Butera would have had much of an answer, I don't know, or not. I asked around a little bit later on, and what I was essentially told is they weren't under the impression that there had been any kind of setback. That was my first thought, like, oh God, something happened and now he's going in for more testing. Let's be clear, he had not been cleared to throw prior to this point anyway, so it's not like he had started throwing at any point in the last few weeks. This may just be a matter of, okay, they were going to give it, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it's been, and try to strengthen it and give him an opportunity to rehab some things and then go back in and check again to see how it looks. On the other end, it's entirely possible that there just hasn't been any progress, and they said, let's take another MRI and see if there's anything more there. I really don't know the answer to that yet. Maybe they don't know the answer to that yet. This could be a big nothing, or it could be a big thing. I just honestly am not sure. But I'll just tell you that when I broached the subject for a little more info on it and said, like, is this because he had a setback? The answer I got was, no, there's been no indication of that. This was just kind of an update of what's happening with him, and he is going in for more testing. It's possible that had been planned all along. The wording of it did not make it sound like this was any kind of positive development. Certainly it made it sound like there had been a setback, but from what I was told, not a setback.
But of course, he may not need a setback to be seriously hurt. Like, he may already be seriously hurt. Here's what I don't want to happen, and here's what I fear could happen. So, as people may remember, in 2024, it's not like he got hurt on July 23rd and underwent the surgery on July 24th. It took a while to get to the point at which he underwent the surgery, and in hindsight, he could have had the surgery a lot sooner. If he needs another UCL surgery, I mean, let's just put the cards on the table. If he needs another UCL surgery, better to get it done now than in, July of this year, something like that. And I'm sure the Nats understand that. I'm not breaking news by saying that. But what you don't want here is, if the worst case scenario is in fact the reality, don't live in denial. Like, let's go ahead and do this and get the ball rolling again on his recovery instead of wasting multiple months, as ended up happening in 2024. That's the concern here, that we're just kind of kicking the can down the road and, refusing to acknowledge what is true, which is that he needs another UCL surgery. We hope that that isn't true, but, it's hard not to have that thought right now with the way this situation has gone so far.
Of course, because you go from having no sense of there being any problem with him to, they put him on the 60-day IL immediately. And for those who forgot, he felt good this spring, was very encouraged by it. They optioned him to AAA during the final week of camp. And in his first and only AAA spring training appearance, he came out of that saying he didn't feel well. And that's when they put him, again, directly on the 60-day IL as opposed to the 15-day IL, which says they know he's going to be out for a long time. Now, obviously didn't have any immediate surgery or procedure or anything. They've kind of had him shut down for the last several weeks, working on strengthening, rehabbing, and now they've reached a point where, for whatever reason, they've decided they need to go in for more testing, and then we'll see what the decision is. But 100% agree with you. If it's clear that he needs something else done, do it now. Don't waste any time. This is not worth trying to build him up over several months to then hopefully bring him back sometime the middle of the season and everything's going to be fine. Chances are it would not be fine. You hope that's not the case. Maybe this is all just extra cautious and nothing to be all that alarmed about. But what we have heard about Josiah Gray since the last week of March, none of the news I would describe has been good news for him.
It has been nearly a full month since he got placed on the 60-day IL that he still has not started throwing and that he still needs additional testing. It's not good, okay? Like, there is no way to spin that. That is not good news at all. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by the Golf Yards in Ballston, the DMV's new home for elite indoor golf training. The Nats season is just getting going, so is the DMV's golf season. Make sure that your swing is ready too. Visit thegolfyards.com to secure your spot. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website you can check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Long look. Gray fires. Swing and a miss. He struck him out on a ball in the dirt. Ruiz will pick it up. He will throw down to first. The strikeout completed. And so is 7 innings for the first time in the big league career of Josiah Gray. Here in the 7th, strikeouts 7, 8, and 9. And he strands the go-ahead run at second base in the bottom of the 7th.